Good afternoon, everyone. Authorities still searching for a driver after a car chase. Early yesterday morning, a deputy tried to stop a vehicle around 3:30 Sunday morning in the 4000 block of 60th Avenue South in Clay County, but the driver took off. The vehicle got stuck on a dead-end road and the driver ran away. A passenger, Martin Torres Jr., jumped into the driver's seat to then try to free the stuck car. Deputies say he didn't comply with commands, so a deputy tased him. Then Torres ran away, but he was caught by a canine. Another passenger, Sydney Monette, was arrested for an outstanding warrant. The sheriff's office says one deputy was hurt during that incident, but the injuries were minor. Meanwhile, officials are still trying to figure out the cause of a fire at the American Legion in Lake Park, Minnesota. That happened around 8 last night. Officials say there's significant fire and smoke damage. No one was inside at the time, and crews say it doesn't seem suspicious. A damage estimate has not been released. Now to a developing story. The Pennington County Sheriff's Office confirmed today they're doing an investigation into sexual assault claims on a youth hockey team. The sheriff told us the county attorney sent their investigation back to them today, requesting more evidence. The investigation is over claims of sexual assault between players of the Jamestown Valley City Prowl Hockey Club. Stick with Valley News Live as we work to learn more. As the snow thaws, the DNR is reminding anglers to remove their fish houses. Any fish houses below Highway 10 should already be removed. Ice houses still out on the lakes can be confiscated and owners can be prosecuted. Fish houses north of the line have until March 21st. Fish houses on the Canadian border have until March 31st. To the forecast, finally this week we may see a bit of spring melt. Chief Meteorologist Hutch Johnson has a first look. Hutch.
Stacy, thanks so much and happy Monday, everyone. A lot of sunshine out there. Some of us began the day with a fresh layer of snow. Blue skies out in the FM area as illustrated by our Luther family forward view here this early Monday afternoon. The big warm up in place right now. We're about 10 degrees warmer at this time as opposed to this time yesterday, rather, as that warm up begins and that sun goes to work. Now up north, we do have a few flakes of snow flying. That's up there near Winnipeg, but the rest of us, a few clouds north of Interstate 94. The rest of us here in the Southern Valley enjoying sunshine aplenty. And where we have that sunshine aplenty, we have warmer temperatures, 30s and even 40s in the capital city. Still near 30 up near the international border as you two are enjoying some milder weather as we start out a new work week. For your planner tonight in Fargo, if you're heading out and about, temperatures will hover near that 30-degree mark, and then after sunset, which is an hour later than it was last week, we'll get to enjoy some temperatures in the mid-20s. So we freeze things back up in many locations, even if we did get above freezing. That slows down the melt, which is big for this time of year. A lot of water sitting in those snowbanks here in the valley. A big warm up this week. Should you get out to the palm trees? Well, tell you what, we may not have many of them around, but you'll want to get out. I'll have details here in a minute.
All right, thanks, Hutch. As Russian forces continue to gain ground in Ukraine, President Biden is considering a trip to Europe to discuss the war with his European counterparts. Natalie Brand is at the White House with the latest, as well as an appeal from Russia to China to help out.
Fighting on the ground gets closer to the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv, with all eyes on another round of direct talks between Ukraine and Russia. Both sides have reported progress. A Ukrainian presidential advisor says they're calling for an immediate ceasefire and withdrawal of all Russian troops. Russian shelling hit an apartment building in Kyiv, killing at least one and injuring others. And a Russian airstrike over the weekend hit a key military base in western Ukraine, killing at least 35. The base is a hub for moving military aid and sits about 15 miles from the border of Poland, a NATO member.
Russia is really getting desperate, right, with not only this action to try to interdict the supply routes, but also, with this kind of, trying to lay the groundwork for maybe the use of chemical weapons, which is concerning.
A U.S. official says Russia has appealed to China for support, including the use of military equipment as its invasion of Ukraine intensifies.
There will absolutely be consequences for large-scale sanctions evasion efforts or support to Russia to backfill them.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is meeting with China's top diplomat today in Rome to discuss the crisis in Ukraine. Russia and China deny the reports. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
Ukraine's president will make a direct appeal to Congress for more support this week. Zelensky will speak virtually to members of the House and Senate on Wednesday. His virtual address will also be live streamed for the public. This comes as Congress recently approved $13.6 billion in emergency military and humanitarian aid for Ukraine. Zelensky spoke by video with House and Senate lawmakers earlier this month, delivering a desperate plea for more military aid. Meanwhile, Ukrainians are scrambling to stow away, wrap up, and fortify as many monuments and art collections as possible, racing to cover dozens of statues in case the Russian bombardments move west. In the port city of Odessa, where there are fears of an imminent attack, Ukrainians made high walls of sandbags to shield important statues.
Every war is a disaster, and it is a disaster for our country.
The city's famous opera house, which survived the Second World War, is now under military guard. In areas already ravaged by attacks, pieces of art have been moved to hidden locations in hopes of protecting Ukrainian history. Some of the collection are famous Russian works, and the irony is not lost on the museum staff. World Heritage directors say an entire cultural life could disappear in this war, and they're calling on the country's important historical sites to be protected. NASA is hoping the ongoing tensions between the U.S. and Russia does not extend to outer space. An astronaut from Minnesota is planning to return to Earth from the International Space Station on a Russian spacecraft. The head of Russia's space agency has made numerous social media posts that made it seem like the astronaut would be stranded in space. He landed on the ISS last April and is scheduled to come back on the 30th. The support from the Twin Cities Ukrainian community is unwavering. A group marched in Minneapolis this afternoon in solidarity. Meanwhile, Senator Amy Klobuchar is in Poland right now, seeing the refugee crisis firsthand. Kirsten Mitchell caught up with the senator and has the latest.
Воювати, батько наш Бандера, Україна мати, ми за Україну будем воювати.
A sea of blue and yellow flooded the streets of Minneapolis.
No fly zone now.
Their message
What do we want?
We want peace.
is clear.
When do we want it?
Now.
Many, like Alex Karamusko, have family trying to flee Ukraine to safety.
How many thousands of Ukrainians has to suffer?
In Poland, more than 1.5 million refugees have crossed the border.
How long was your trip?
Senator Amy Klobuchar is there with a group of bipartisan lawmakers meeting with refugees, aid workers, diplomats, military leaders, and U.S. soldiers. The Minnesota Democrat spoke with us on the phone hours after a deadly missile attack in western Ukraine happened just 15 miles away from her.
Senator, do you think the U.S. needs to do more?
Well, we got a big start this week when Congress authorized billions of dollars in funding to help with the Ukrainian refugees. But I think a lot of this is also continuing to get the ammunition and the air defense into President Zelensky.
How are the soldiers from Minnesota doing?
Well, they're very proud to be part of this mission.
Senator Klobuchar says she's left with immense gratitude for the Polish and is in awe of the strength of the Ukrainians.
People with everything that they owned left behind and only a backpack. Those are the things you don't forget, and that is when you realize the evil that is Vladimir Putin.
Back in Minneapolis, a showing of solidarity and love for Ukrainian culture. In Minneapolis, Kirsten Mitchell, WCCO 4 News.
Senator Klobuchar says she hopes the bipartisan trip shows Putin that the U.S., despite our differences, is united and committed to helping Ukraine. Former Minnesota Republican Party Chairwoman Jennifer Carnahan is jumping into the race to replace her husband, Jim Hagedorn, in Congress. Carnahan says she's committed to continuing her late husband's legacy of fighting to secure the border, defending conservative values, and safeguarding the integrity of elections. Hagedorn died last month at the age of 59 after a battle with kidney cancer. The Minneapolis public school educators' strike has now entered its second week. School board members say they're committed to reaching an agreement, but teachers and education support professionals continue to take a stand on issues which they say were adopted in St. Paul, bringing teachers back to classrooms there.
What we saw in St. Paul is that settlement had class sizes in the contract, mental health supports in the contract, livable wages for education support professionals. Those are our priorities. We know they can do it in St. Paul. We can do it in Minneapolis, and that's a very clear message.
Union leaders say the difference in negotiations has been whether an agreement will be on a temporary basis or written into a contract. But the latest proposals on the district website show that the two sides are tens of millions of dollars apart in what they want. The board referenced its budget shortfall, but they're hoping Minnesota's surplus money is a potential savior, offering them room to compromise on the union on the money matter.